In your life, you might experience trouble with broken boundaries. You might think, why am I doing this? Why am I willing to cross this line for these things? And we can understand that we're not made for this brokenness. Hey everyone, my name is Adam Cross, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and a youth minister in Southern California. And today I want to talk to you about boundaries. What are boundaries? Sometimes people feel like they have no boundaries. Sometimes people feel like they have too many boundaries and they're rigid. And sometimes people are just confused about what a healthy boundary is. The first thing I'll say is that our boundaries protect us, preserve us, and let us know what is healthy and what is good. So we are made in the image and likeness of God. And that means that good boundaries are actually written on our hearts, that we are made instinctually to know love, goodness, and truth. And God, on top of that, has revealed what is good to us, what we are made for. We can think of the 10 Commandments as boundaries to worship God, to how to love others, how to treat others, and how to treat ourselves. Boundaries are important, and they can be found at the heart of our faith. So boundaries really remind us of our goodness, of our worth, and of our dignity. Now, all those things said about God revealing boundaries, writing them on our hearts, why do sometimes we struggle to know our worth, our goodness, or to struggle to set boundaries? And really the answer is this. We live in a broken world, right? We live dealing with sin and the effects of sin. And even in our families, growing up, we encounter this brokenness that can distort our boundaries. It can distort our view of self, God, love, relationship, and what is healthy. And so our boundaries actually can be misformed over time, right? They can become distorted. And so that's why we see people who are willing to cross boundaries and do unhealthy things, because at some point that's kind of normalized or necessary for them to keep going and survive or to be loved. At the basis of it all, we were made for communion with God. And in this fallen world with sin, we still desire deep intimacy. But through that brokenness, through suffering and sin, sometimes we're willing to cross healthy boundaries, trying to get that intimacy, even if it ends up hurting ourselves or others. We can see our own brokenness in that way. So boundaries are kind of like a metal detector, right? That boundaries keep good things in and they keep bad things out. That our boundaries scan for what isn't good for us. And I've heard so many people, even children, say that they know when something's wrong. They know when a boundary is being crossed. If someone is doing something that we are not okay with emotionally, mentally, physically, or sexually, we can know, we can even feel it in our body when someone is not recognizing our dignity, our worth, our goodness, and really our kinship with God as a Father. So our boundaries, again, they keep good things in, they keep bad things out. That we're not crossing these boundaries out of a pretense of getting love that our Father wants to pour on us in the context of these healthy boundaries. So in your life, you might experience trouble with broken boundaries. You might think, why am I doing this? Why am I willing to cross this line for these things? And we can understand that we're not made for this brokenness, that we might be pursuing love and intimacy in the wrong way, right? We might actually be willing to hurt ourselves in that process. But God has made us for intimacy. God has made us for full life. And that means a healing and a proper formation of boundaries. That's why therapy is so important, because we can go to therapy, we can talk with someone who's objective and who can help us navigate some of our broken boundaries. The boundaries we learned as children in our families that were distorted or bent out of shape. Therapy can be a great place to recognize even the areas that we need healing and to begin to take steps for that healing. If you have broken boundaries, welcome to the club. We are all struggling in some way with sin and brokenness. That's why we need God. But God is also putting tools and people in front of us in our lives to help us sort out these boundaries, right? To help us see where are areas for healing that He's calling us to. Boundaries are there. They're given to us because we're made in goodness. We're made for love, with love, by love. Sometimes they get bent out of shape. But like a good metal detector, it's scanning for things that shouldn't be allowed in. And so we can recalibrate that metal detector through therapy, through doing healing work, and even allowing things to be called out that maybe we can do better, or asserting our needs with other people if they're crossing boundary lines. Last thing I'll say is this, is in correcting and forming and understanding our boundaries, we can do one thing that really helps. We can check in with ourselves frequently. We can say, how am I doing, right? How am I doing physically? How am I doing mentally, emotionally, even sexually, right? Chastity. How are my sexual boundaries in that regard? And we can check in with ourselves and say, how am I feeling? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling happy? Am I feeling afraid or anxious? We can check in with ourselves regularly, because if we know how we're feeling, we're saying, I'm angry. Why am I angry? Well, I'm angry because this guy just cut in front of me at the grocery store. Well, that's a boundary. I'm angry because that boundary was violated. And not saying you have to, but if you know the boundary, I'm angry because he didn't recognize my dignity as a human being. He just cut in line. That really angered me. That's a value I hold, right? I could say something. And I could even say something with love. Not to just react. I'm angry. But I could respond and set that boundary. Say, hey, excuse me, I was in line, right? There's a million examples of that, and probably very more personal examples than that. But when we check in with ourselves, we understand our values, what boundaries we have, what values we have. We can then express and even assert our needs and our boundaries with other people. We can have those conversations, sharing and expressing the truth of what we're experiencing with love, and recognizing that we are made for dignity, worth, and goodness because we're made by our Heavenly Father. Boundaries are so important, and there's something that we can kind of glaze over, but we all need kind of that reshaping, that reforming, and that healing of our boundaries. Don't be afraid to look there and ask the question, where do I need healing in relationships and boundaries? What do I need to be clarified? What do I need to be fixed? That maybe my family partially helped, bend out of shape. What the brokenness in my family helped partially bend out of shape. Right? That sin helped bend out of shape. So ask yourself those questions about boundaries. Don't be afraid to go there, and don't be afraid to ask for a therapist. To look at the areas in your life where there might be some boundary confusion. Lastly, I'll say this. God, again, has made us for boundaries. He wants us to have clarity. He wants us to be in communion with Him and to have that sense of security with Him. And that means having healthy boundaries. He doesn't want us to cross boundaries into sin, into suffering, into pain. And so invite God into your boundaries. Invite Him into this work you're doing of healing in your relationships, self-image, God-image, and your broken families. And invite Him into that and pick up the tools that He's putting before you to check in with yourself, to express your needs with others, and to recognize where your boundaries maybe need some updates, need some refurbishment, and need some of God's loving healing in your life. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them below. Hit that like button, that subscribe, they're down there. And feel free to reach out, shoot me an email as well if you have any questions. You can also check out my website, which is adamcrossmft.com. But thank you again for watching, and God bless you.